Health Cypher is a podcast where we connect with our listeners through educating on the many facets of mental health, share our stories of dealing with the symptoms, and heal through our experiences of overcoming the challenges. You good?
Hey, bro, you good?
No?
No?
Well, then,
let's talk about healing.
Hello, everyone. This is SoulScribe Omaria.
Peace, and this is the Herban Yogi, a.k.a. Shanti.
And welcome to our show this evening on depression. And tonight we're specifically be talking about holiday depression and how it affects us. Every year right now we are going into the coming out of Thanksgiving and going into the Christmas and Chanukah and Kwanzaa season, and everyone is kind of dealing with their own feelings that may be of sadness or grief, any type of emotion that you may have during this time period that deals with feeling, a little bit more sad, just based on specific circumstances that may trigger the depression in you. And one thing I found is that, 16.2 million adults in the United States alone have had at least one major depressive episode in a given year. And that's kind of alarming. And thankfully, nowadays, we are trying to get the stigma to go away a little bit more. More people are opening up when we think about celebrities and people that are in the public eye that are being more open about being admitted to the hospital for depression. Women talking about, postpartum depression. Men opening up and sharing about them going through depression. So, Sai, tell me, what do you have to say about depression and holiday depression?
Well, as someone who is challenged by depression, I know a lot about depression. First of all, let me preface this by saying I am not a doctor, psychiatrist. We will not be offering any medical advice. We will instead be offering practical advice based on personal experiences. Me personally, my personal experiences, and things that we've researched that resonate with us. And the thing about depression is finding and defining your own depression, what it means to you, what triggers your depression, and knowing the difference between being sad and depressed, because there's a huge difference. Sadness could happen within the course of a day and last a few minutes, or it could be situational. Something may make you sad. Depression is more lingering, and it'll be consistent, and it could go on for hours, days. And manic depression, the depression or severe depression, go on for weeks or longer. That's what I had. My depression wasn't sadness. It wasn't a moment of sadness. It was consistent days, weeks, and months of feeling in a low vibratory state, feeling hopelessness, feeling suicidal, homicidal, just having these thoughts that were very unpleasant, but it seemed I couldn't control the influx of them coming in and changing my state and my behavior. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, because depression is more prevalent around the holiday season for a plethora of different reasons, and we're going to be covering some of those reasons and what I've done to combat that.
Right, right. So one of the reasons or ways that depression has hit me just during this season alone is because, the sun is, for those of us in America, the sun is not out as long as it usually is during the summer or springtime. So it gets darker quicker. And I know that I can tell a difference in my mood, a difference in me wanting to go to sleep earlier, not really wanting to do anything, just having a complete lack of energy. And I noticed that typically it does happen more during the winter months, fall and winter months, than it does during the spring and summer months.
So if you look at it from an environmental standpoint, if you live in a place that experiences a full-blown winter, where the trees, and I'm using quotation marks here, it seems nature dies. The trees, are falling. The flowers are not in blooming. The birds bounce, and forget all this. Think of a big wave of depression be out of here. Seems like everything dies in the winter just so it can rise again in the spring and then fully blossom in the summer. So you add to the environmental, quote unquote, atmosphere of death. The winter time also houses the most prevalent, especially in the Western Hemisphere, holidays. You got, and I'll even go back as far as Halloween, because many of us grew up with back in the day when Halloween used to be something that was fun before the craziness of it, where we would dress up and we get candy and staying out late. It was a good time for us. Not going to get into the whole ancient pagan origins of it. That's another show for another time. But so Halloween, right after Halloween, that's Thanksgiving. That's the time when the family's together, and you're seeing relatives you haven't probably seen all year round, and you have a big feast, and you are being mindfully thankful for things that have happened for you or to you that year. Right on the heels of Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, then Christmas Day, then New Year's Eve, then New Year's Day, and all of this happened right on the heels of fall, going into winter, when everything is seemingly dying or dead. Then you add to that, and a lot of people can relate to this. A lot of people have lost relatives earlier part in the year, which means that when the first holidays come where your relative or your loved one isn't here, it's going to hit you hard, because you spent your life growing up with them, or you spent a life together with them, if it's a spouse or partner or someone like that. Even pets. Some people are attached to their pets and consider them family members. If their pet dies before holidays come, and the year-end holidays can be very difficult and challenging for them. Some people lost relatives or loved ones during the holidays. So now, this holiday season is a reminder of losing them last holiday season. So it's a lot of different dynamics to go on around the holidays. And if you're already suffering from depression, these holiday months are going to be very challenging, even more challenging than usual. Because it's not just you. It's not just all in your mind. It's environmental. And then the contrast of holiday songs and happiness and goodwill to all men, but you feel depressed. You feel the total opposite of what's being projected in film, TV, decorations, songs, and things of that nature. So it's holiday depression it's rough. It's challenging, and unfortunately, it's taken a lot of people out who prefer to hit the reset button rather than deal with the challenges that go along with it.
Right. Because I mean, like even when you mentioned the songs and everybody is putting on the facade, I would say, of being cheerful and joyful, but the environment itself is not conducive to being happy-go-lucky and cheerful and joyful. So, going through my own depressive state, we have to figure out, or I myself have tried to figure out, what can I do to kind of counteract or just deal through with what's going on with me. And sometimes, I turn off the radio and I just won't listen to the music. Or when it comes to the family members or people, loved ones that I've had, and maybe this is the first or second holiday season that they're no longer with me. One of the methods that I use is trying to keep their memories alive and talking about them to people. But then again, for some people, it's like, no, I don't want to talk about it because, it still hurts so bad. So what are some of the ways that you are able to work through the depressive states during the holiday season?
I've experimented with many different techniques, and I think it's always important to have more than one trick of your sleeve, so to speak, because different applications will work at different times. It's like Batman's utility belt. He had a lot of gadgets on there, and when you're dealing with depression, you had to have a lot of tools on your tool belt. So I'm gonna give you a few of mine. One of mine is I have my smile makers, things that make me laugh. Shout out to YouTube. I put together a playlist of things that I will watch, and it'll have me laughing so hard that whatever's happening in that moment, it may have me thinking in a low vibration. It takes me out of it. Because when you're laughing, that releases endorphins inside of you that brings about happiness. Even if it's temporary. Sometimes that's all you need. You just need that temporary break from a dark, depressive state just so you can get a little bit of clarity and you can maneuver yourself and navigate around it. So that's one of the techniques that I use. I'm laughing at something. Music. I love music. I love oldies but goodies. A lot of the music that I listen to carries the vibration and memories of a specific loved one or a specific time where there was good times, there was bad times. This is where you got to be more strategic about your playlist. There are some songs I listen to, they only gonna carry a vibration of happiness and joy. Even though I may have been going through a rough time in my life, that particular song was a song that was being played while something was happening that was breaking me away from that depression, that sadness. It could have been something like we used to go down south a lot when I was a kid, and there were certain songs that remind me of those road trips. And, for my East Coast people and people down south, they know what this is. South of the border. If you don't know what south of the border is, you ain't supposed to know. When we were going down south, we knew that the first destination was south of the border. And it was like, that was Disney World to us. And there were certain songs that would play during that time that's in my playlist that when I listen to, it takes me right back to south of the border and the souvenirs we used to buy and how happy we were and the people that we met down there and the good times and some jokes and, you know, things of that nature. So music is another one of my tricks that I use. Another one is my self-talk. If you allow depression to be the only voice inside of your mind, it will keep you in a depressive state. But once I find myself going into my depression, I immediately start to combat that with positive reaffirming thoughts. Or better yet, and experiment with this. These are my techniques. This may not be conducive to everybody's situation. Many times I'll dive right into my depression like a cannonball, head first, because I know it's coming up for something that is unresolved that I need to deal with. There's some layers of the onion that I need to peel to heal. So many times I will mindfully go into once depression presents itself, I will mindfully go into it knowing that I'm going to be able to leave breadcrumbs to talk my way out of it. And sometimes just verbalizing what you're going through and not leaving it up in your head is a good way to look at it objectively instead of subjective. And right along with the self-talk goes writing. You know, a lot of times we accumulate so much on our mind and we're trying to organize it, but you can't bring about order in a mind that's chaotic. So another way to release yourself from that chaos in your mind is to write things down. I do a combination of both. I write it down and I'll speak it. And I also say it within my mind. So that's actually 3 different ways that I'm redefining these negative thoughts that I'm having or these sad thoughts that I'm having. And my last technique I'm going to share with you, because I don't want everybody to have the same belt I got, because I'll get awkward if we happen to go to a cosplay convention and we wear the same depression utility belt. That's a joke. Another technique is to change the feng shui in my environment. That means detaching from certain people and certain energies, certain environments, or certain habits that you know are going to be triggers to your depression and creating new ones. I like to have incense or some scented candles. I might even just change the furniture in my crib around just to give it a different energy or bring something new to it that'll add to the energy. You know, a plant, a painting, some type of artwork, or getting rid of things that may have a emotional baggage attached to it that I'm not even aware of. You know,
right.
I love to own a piece of furniture that every time you see it, it's triggering these emotions in you. You're not even realizing it until you remove it. But at the same time, you may not want to detach from it because you think it'll be disrespectful to them because they gave it to you or was in the family for so long. You can keep it in the family, give it to another family member, or move it to another room. But changing the feng shui, changing your environment, detaching from toxic relationships, toxic people. That's another one of my techniques. That might be my default technique.
You know, so you're the cut-off king.
Yeah, I'm a DJ. You know, distraction. Because there are times where I was the one that was toxic that people needed to remove themselves from. You know, to keep it real. And I can look back on those timeline, in my timeline, I could see where I was. Somebody may have removed themselves from me, and I may have felt a certain way. But now I look back on, I said, man, it was right to do that. You know, I'm glad they do that. They did that. And give yourself permission to have the courage to do that because that's not an easy thing.
Correct.
That's not an easy. people stay in toxic relationships because it's familiar, and they will rather experience a familiar hell than try to explore a unknown heaven.
Woo!
And many the presence of depression stem from mental illness will have you looking at your current condition in a distorted view. Your perception is skewed because you're filtering it through an emotional dynamic that's not serving your greatest good. So you think you'll be doing something wrong if you disassociate yourself from someone who's may have always been there for you. And no one's there for you if you're not there for them. But if someone is hijacking your time by holding what they've done for you over your head, that within itself is toxic. Because any type of interaction with someone is going to be reciprocative. It's going to be a act of I give, you take. You give, I take. And we reciprocate. So anytime you got somebody who's saying, well, I did this for you, I did that for you, I did that for you, they're saying that, but they've also gotten something from you, which is why they're doing what they're doing for you. And not saying anything's wrong with that. We need each other. That's what the whole community structure is supposed to be based on. We doing for one another. But when someone doing for you is the consequences of their toxic behavior or their toxic words or their toxic mentality, it's not worth it. That becomes a consequence rather than a reward.
Right. And sorry
for
cutting you off, sorry. We definitely will have to do a show on the relationships and how they can play a big factor when we're talking about mental health and wellness, and how it can cause issues and concerns when it comes to depression and all of the other personality disorders that can come through that with dealing with different relationships. Before we go, is there anything else you want to say when it comes to holiday depression?
Yeah. I'm going to say this. This might be controversial to a lot of people, but feel me on it. Unless you was one of those children who grew up knowing that your parents were Santa Claus, there was a time in your childhood where you believed in the magic of Christmas. And I like to use that word magic because it was a magical time. Remove yourself from what you may have learned about the origins of it, what it may actually mean, and just focus on that moment when you was a child, when it meant something special to you, where the anticipatory anxiety that you felt as Santa Claus was coming to give you a gift for being good all year meant something. The Christmas songs meant something. The Christmas movies and TV shows meant something. It brought you happiness. If you're an adult and you're going through that holiday depression, don't be afraid to take yourself back to that time where Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer made you smile, where getting a gift, made you happy. It just made your day. Don't be afraid to buy yourself something that you wanted, wrap it up, put it on the Christmas tree. Or if you don't do the Christmas tree thing, open it up on Christmas with the same energy that you did when you was a child. I promise you that works. I bought myself a computer one year. I wrapped it up, and I opened up that thing like for a week straight. The same energy I did when I was a child. And it put me back in that vibrational alignment of when Christmas was magical, when Christmas was something that I defined, not having it defined to me. So just try that. I'm pretty sure there's a song or a show that you used to watch that made you happy. If you're going through a rough time this year, experiment with the techniques that I gave you. Experiment with some of your own, and try to use those techniques and see if it can help make it through, make it better for you. And this is going to be a part 1 of a part 2, because our next show we're going to be talking about it some more.
Right. And just to piggyback off of and add on to what you just said about purchasing a gift, don't feel afraid to, watch some of those new Christmas movies that they have out. Simon mentioned Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Sometimes I turn on Netflix and I'll start watching some of those new movies that they have out in regards to Christmas and the holiday joy, and just people being good people. And that also helps me to feel pretty good and brings a little bit more joy to my life during these times. So that is our show tonight. Thank you guys for joining us. If you have any questions that you want to send into the show for us to discuss, make sure you email us at thementalhealthcypher@gmail.com. That's the mental, mental, health, health, cypher, cypher@gmail.com. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Peace.